Hello, and welcome to this edition of the Law Firm Blueprint. I'm one of your hosts, Jay Ruane, and with me, as always, is my man Seth Price down there today, operating from BluShark headquarters. I never know where you're going to be. It's Australia, it's South America, it's Europe, it's on a cruise, and now you're just home in the D.C., Maryland, Virginia area. Great to see you, Seth. My day's been a bit of a cluster. How's your
day? Here? You know what? Like it's similar, but not at your level of cluster. There's J level cluster, and there's everything else. So tell us what went on today, Jay.
Well, so we send a lot of texts. We probably send about 35,000 text messages a month. And today I got a notice from my text provider that they're locking it down our account. And they're locking down our account because it's been hacked. And I'm thinking to myself, how the hell has it been hacked? We send all of our text messages through our CRM, through an API key. What's going on? Well, it turns out that we were hacked because a number of our employees have been using legacy credentials to get into the website to send the text messages instead of doing it through our CRM, because they want to be able to attach a picture of the lawyer, and we hadn't built in an attach image to our CRM, and they didn't bother to bring that to our attention and tell us. We could have done this 2 or 3 years ago, and one of them had gotten hacked, and that's how the password got out there. So we had something like 90 new dashboards built in our account that were sending out hundreds of text messages. And so they shut us down, rightfully so, because we're
they did you a favor, because the last thing you want is everything spammed.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they weren't being spammed from my number, but they were because they were adding phone numbers to the account.
But it wasn't good.
Well, it would also, if I had not paid attention to it, my $500 a month texting bill would have been $1,500 next month, because all of a sudden I've got 90 new phone numbers at the $10 a month that are sending out text messages. It's solved. I mean, it's a life lesson for me.
I would say the bigger thing is, look, we have gotten really dialed in. We heard some of the nightmare situation of people getting hacked into their financials. So I think the first thing I did was like, look, I'm no tech genius, but I'm like, two-factor authentication for everything. Just everything. Start with that, right? That eliminates that. Like, are there better ways of doing it with a token over the text message? Yeah, but start with that. Especially, stuff as basic as Bill.com. We love Bill.com as you do. It's like, no, we're not. It's the people that got hacked were set up by their accountants and didn't think that way. So IT gets on. We've been using Andrew Finkelstein put us on to these testing services that send fake things, and it's amazing. We're years into it. Still, people are clicking on this shit.
Yeah.
It's really it's taking it serious, because it's fine until it's not fine.
Exactly, and for us, we've gone over to two-factor authentication for everything. But this was a legacy system that I didn't even think people were looking for. And going into our wiki and finding the password for it and using it that way. So now we're.
The good news is there's gumption. The bad news is they're a rogue player, like what you would do when you were an employee.
Oh, I got a funny story. I can tell you that. So I worked for the public defender's office in Connecticut when I first got out of law school, and they brought in T1 lines to the courthouse, to the offices. And I, at that time, had also discovered Napster. And so I was downloading, terabytes of songs every day while I was in court. I just here's all the ones I'm going to download. I plug in my hard drive and I just do it, And so I do that. I leave one office. I get reassigned to another office, and the IT guy shows up there like a month in. He's like, we gotta put on some brakes here, because there's some abuse of the T1 line. And then he gets to my computer and he goes, man, I haven't seen abuse this bad since that guy Jay left the office up in Derby. And I'm like, oh, nice to meet you. I'm Jay. They moved me here. He goes, dude, you're my white whale. He's like, you have been eating our bandwidth. And I was like, well, no one told me I couldn't download this stuff, so I started doing it. He's like, I'm going to block your computer so you can't do anything. but it was just kind of funny.
So I have a similar story. It was on my own dime. I was living in a rent controlled sublet on Central Park West, 88th and Central Park West, next to Kevin Bacon on the park. Best deal I've ever had in my life. And to get RCN cable there took an act of God. I literally got to know one of the SVPs, through phone and email, and was one of, I believe, 40,000 people on the island of Manhattan that was lucky enough to get a line because they were so dysfunctional at putting people in, which meant that my speed was so lightning fast that the last night before they closed down Napster, I burned 13 CDs of every song it would hold. And I still have those CDs somewhere.
You don't have a CD player anymore. That's the thing.
I know. But I think I digitized it eventually. I don't know where it is now.
I've got a box, like a bin in my garage of all of the CDs, because I worked in radio when I was in college, and I used to go to the CMJ, event down in the city, and I'd get white labels, and then they turned into white labeled CDs, singles from Tommy Boy and all those labels. So I have so many that I just probably need to sit my kid down this summer and be like, digitize my whole music collection.
I've tried those projects. They don't go so well.
Well, I'll tell you, speaking of putting your kids on stuff, I had my daughter in the office last week. She had a day off from school, and she was looking for something to do. And I got her using AI, a good prompt, and a bunch of different town names and stuff with a spreadsheet. She created like 100 pages of content for us in about 3 hours. And it's good quality content. We've run it through Grammarly. We've run it through a couple of checks. It seems to be, individualized enough that it's not going to pose any red flags. And I think that that's something that I may put her to work doing this summer.
Yeah, I'd say the only caution is, from an SEO point of view, like I feel like in one sense, things are jamming. You keep hearing SEO's dead. I mean, we're just crushing it month after month. Clients are doing great. One of the things I would say is just be careful that what feels good and look, I get it. There are places for it. But just, the ripping off of ChatGPT and throwing it on the website is sort of like the equivalent of the Philippines links, circa 2007.
Yeah, I agree 100%. What we're doing is we're getting very specific about the type of stuff that we want, and we're inserting it into pages that we've already drafted manually so that we can beef those up. So that's sort of
the legal pages about stuff that's local. That's a little bit different than the regurgitated, injury lawyer, criminal lawyer stuff.
Right. Exactly. So I'm pretty happy. But I've been, since we haven't had a bunch of episodes, I've been going down this AI rabbit hole. We now have a prompt that we're using with a series of 50 questions to get mitigation reports. I think I talked about that. I now have a prompt where I can get offer and options letters out to clients where we break down sort of like a demand letter on the PI side.
Well, I'll do this while we're online. Can we get you for 10, 15 minutes at the Fisher event on the 30th in New York? Come in and sort of, I think it'll only be about 20% non-PI, but I think the concept is powerful if you're able to make it in.
Yeah, if I can make it in, I absolutely will. I'll probably come in that morning. I think I'm clear. I'm hoping to make it happen because I think, I love being in that room, talking with people who are thinking about the future, thinking about things that can be done. But it's really amazing. I went down this. If you're out there, type in master prompt into your search engine of choice, and there's a guy out there named. I'm trying to get his. What is this? The master prompt method. I'm trying to remember what this guy's name is. Tiago Forte was the this guy was, and Hayden Miyamoto. That's it. Tiago Forte, Hayden Miyamoto. They did a YouTube video about how to build a master prompt. It's when you go in to your settings and you tell the AI about who you are, your business, what your goals are, the people in your firm, the people that you have working for you, how you outsource your products, and then you can create AI trigger. I mean, my master prompt now is like 30 pages long. But now I can go into either Claude or into Grok or into ChatGPT and that's usually the order I go. And I can ask it for things, and it already knows my revenue run, my growth plans, all of that stuff. So it's able to give me better ideas. Like I was able to say, okay, take a look at all of my lead magnets for the criminal mastermind. Which ones am I missing? And it suggested 3 or 4 that I never would have come up of off the top of my head. So this AI stuff is mind blowing. And I said to a friend of mine, I said, I uploaded all my physicians' names and phone numbers, because I guarantee you within a year I can be like, hey, book my appointments with my doctors and just let AI take care of it for me. Our voice AI is working. I'm really excited about this AI stuff.
So that is awesome. Hopefully we get to chat more in person next week. I got something I'll just throw at you just for that I thought might be an aha moment I had. I had a great favorite employee, and when I came into work in the morning, I was always like, the mornings were rough. They were like beyond just sort of like, hey, old school, you come in, you get your coffee. And I was like, what is going on here? And again, I'm a couple levels up, so I'm trying not to get into the weeds. But whenever I spoke to them, one of the things that historically it's been a blessing and a curse. I can ask 3 questions to an employee and find whatever the hell they're not doing right comes zooming out. So they would yell at me, it's a process problem. And I've gotten away from this. I only talk to directors. I'm not playing that game, but it does suck when you get to people. But I had this aha moment where I was like, did you have breakfast this morning? And the answer was no. And it all of a sudden hit me, with the switch between working from home, where you have a fridge in front of you, to going out, to getting to work, that there are people that are doing it. And, look, Bloomberg has free lunch, free breakfast sitting around the office. And we have snacks in the office, and we bring stuff in on Mondays and do Starbucks one morning of the week. But is that something that we are now, especially for sort of younger employees that aren't set up at home with a family fridge, but might be living in a group house, where people run out? And again, this is, this law firm is not we have Keurigs there, we have snacks all over the place, but is that something where, if, talk about, you need people, talk about mental health a lot, but is that one of those things? Again, it was just one of those aha moments that if it was that much of a difference that you could see it, is that something that we need to sort of just be aware of, or have managers aware of?
Well, I think it's definitely something you need to be aware of. I will tell you, my state, we're lucky we have individual voir dire, but the courts break for lunch at 1 p.m. They go, trials are 10 to 1 and then 2 to 5. And it's amazing to me because, after doing this for 25 years, my body's on that time clock. So that's when I get hungry. But, you have people that come for jury duty and they're used to eating at 11:30. They've lost all attention. Their stomach is growling between 11:30 and 12:30. They're not paying attention to your trial at all by 1 o'clock. And so, yeah, I think that's something that we have to do. Maybe what I got to do.
Studies out there about sentences of people before and after lunch.
Yeah. And I think it makes a huge difference. So, maybe what I need to do, most of my people start on their way to court, given the nature of our type of practice. But it's one of those things where it's like, hey, get your coffee and donut or your bagel or whatever you need. Make sure that you're paying attention to these things.
Or maybe just make sure that, again, it's expense, but, as we focus on fewer rock star domestic employees and you're leveraging everything else, do we need to make sure for the people that we do touch, not that we don't want the international people nourished, but much harder to reach out and do that. So it struck me, and again, we talk about it, about it in jury situations, about it with judges. But the same thing can be real in the workplace.
I like to keep my office stocked with snacks. We have coffee for the people that are coffee drinkers. We've got one of those, bevy soda machines for people who like flavored waters and seltzers and that type of thing. We have some stuff in the freezer in case you didn't get to eat and you need, like a TV dinner type thing. but yeah, I think it blood sugar does play a role in a lot of things, and people get into a system. I mean, I can tell you back during COVID times when we were all remote. One of the things that we did work on was every month we would send a snack box to everybody, where
I
they
remember
could
that.
and they could share their, we would get creative snacks, that type of thing, and whack it up and box it and send it to people. And that was a way that we kept our culture together, is because everyone was, oh, I like those M&Ms, or I hated those, that type of thing, or those chips were delicious and those weren't. So maybe it's just something that like you need to pay attention to the other things, and that's going to separate you from everybody else. I got a
Absolutely.
question for you. And this deals with a longtime employee. I'm interested in your take on it. So we've been in practice for 25 years, and one of our employees has been with us for 22 years. When she was a young mother, she asked for summer Fridays off, and at that point, we could grant that because we figured out a way to make it work. Now, all of her children have now graduated high school; they are on, and yet she insists that she gets summer Fridays off. Now, I did it because she didn't have childcare on Fridays in the summer. It has come to be sort of a annual thing that, well, I don't work on Fridays during the summer. I get 3-day weekends. And she's pushing back against my office manager saying, yeah, you don't get office Fridays anymore. That was an accommodation to you years ago because you had kids and no childcare, but now you don't have any childcare issues. If we're going to give it to anybody, let's give it to the young moms that are here. And this employee is pushing back saying, I've had it for 20 years. I'm not giving it up.
Well, let's back up for a second. How long has she been with you? 20 years?
22 years.
Yeah. And to me, again, most people listening to this podcast, present person included, wish we had staff with us for 22 years. If you're lucky enough to keep somebody for 22 years and they want summer Fridays off, God bless. Again, assuming everything else is good, to me, it doesn't cost you. You already have it baked in.
Right.
Taking it away does, you're
ill will.
Look, right. I think there's a bigger management question. So to me, tell her, Seth says, I think she should keep her summer Fridays off and you should be thankful she's with you 22 years. That's me. But easier advice to give than to take. That said, I think that it does something that I have seen in general, which is once something, it's part of like the world that you and I have lived in as we're managing, in my case, several hundred people across a couple businesses, that once something is offered, it's never coming back.
Right.
Right. And
again, that's a problem because you can be super generous when you're small and nimble and, hey, we all work together and there's 4 of us. And so we're going to figure this out.
Breakfast. You could put breakfast out, but you better be ready that Monday breakfast is always going to be there. Because if you stop, there's a cost and a negative to it. And so that with each piece, each benefit, it's just thinking about it, not in terms, as you're saying, exponentially with more people. And does it make sense as you grow? And are there going to be moments where it's going to cost you because taking it away like this, it made sense. It kept you retained and employed. And the truth is at this point, I look at it this way. The federal government, when there were still government jobs, I remember this was one of the things that always stuck with me because I interned with the FTC, that in the government, you were working an 8-hour day. Like, I don't know if it was I forget, a half hour, an hour for lunch, whatever it was. By working an extra half hour a day over every 2 weeks, that would give you Friday off. I think the math is right. So if you do something to that effect, maybe it was an hour a day. So there would be an hour a day. If you work 9 extra hours, that 10th day you wouldn't have to work.
Okay.
So I would look at it this way. If this person's giving you, with their 22 years of service, an extra hour of value a day, and that for 10, 12 weeks over the summer, you're not getting that. Because they'd probably be, you can look at it a lot of different ways. Extra vacation, you can look at it that way. You can look at the person so productive. But at the end of the day, does with that, do you still have a valuable comp package? Pulling it back really, probably going to be more ill will than it's worth.
Yeah, it's definitely creating tension to try to pull it back.
But anything, name a time when you tried to pull something back, it didn't create tension.
right. And the office manager's reasoning was, hey, yeah, you got this when your kids were little. Now we want you to cover, and the other people who have little kids can take the time off, and they covered for you
But
back in the day.
you were first at a time when one-off deals were much more prevalent. I was king of that. I was known for the one-off deal. Everybody at the firm, and they slowly but surely, said, "Look, that's great, just not great for scale. If you want to keep a small team."
And I think that's one of the challenges as you start to scale that no one ever talks about. They talk about, oh, you're going to need more people. You're going to have to build in some redundancies. You're going to have to more effective training. But you never really talk about, hey, if I granted this in the year 2000, now it's still in play, but I've gone from having one paralegal who gets that to now I've got 12 and only one gets that. How is that equitable? And I want to, that type of thing. So it's just a challenge. And I'm just talking about it because I want people who are out there who are seeing their future arrive with scale to be cognizant. There are things that you won't even think about, like my IT issue today with the text messaging that people went, grabbed the username and password and were using the platform rather than our CRM. And then this thing. So it's there's a lot that can happen, is what I'm saying.
Right. It pivots to an oldie but goodie, right? My old favorite was giveaway titles. Somebody's right out of college, they could be the CMO. You have your IT guy who's 1 year of experience becomes your director of technology, and all of that's great. And I thought it was a great idea until a year later they come and say, hey, the CMO is supposed to be paid $150,000, and it's like somebody has to break it to the person they're not really a CMO, despite what the business says.
Right. That's a major.
But when you're little, it allows you to be, gregarious and sure, tell your parents you're a CMO. What do I care? I think we see that a lot. I mean, there's a lot, the word COO is thrown out. That brings, and that's one where a true COO comes with an MBA, lots of experience, $250,000 to $300,000 salary. That is not, there's the firm administrator, there's the office manager, firm administrator, director of operations. There's all these different stages in between, which are great. And it's a question of making sure that I feel like as you grow, it mirrors the same concept, that the discipline and order, which doesn't feel as good and may have a slight disadvantage because you can't use that as a carrot, actually has costs further down the line.
Yeah, it's really this. You would think as you scale, it would get easier. But what you're finding is more nuanced problems, which take creativity. That it's hard to come by, because I know how I would have solved it when I was 5 people, but when I'm 50 people, I need to solve it a different way. What are you thinking you're going to do this summer? Do you have any projects? Like every summer for me, Memorial Day to Labor Day, even though it doesn't fall into a particular quarter necessarily, because you got the end of quarter 2, the beginning of quarter 3, I usually like to have some sort of sprint in my office, something that we're focusing on. And one of the things that we're focusing on in our office, the thing that we're focused. So, like, I guess it's like an additional rock, I guess you would call it.
Yeah, and I guess, and you know what? And as I've grown, I've gone to real rocks. And I mean, I don't want to be disparaging. I'm just saying that it is, rather than having a push, the answer is we want to be pushing every quarter. So, I'm trying not to go to conferences and come back with stuff and distract and throw it out there, but rather say, hey, we want these initiatives with AI put in place. I want these things with reviews put in place. I want these offline media pieces put in place, and trying to sit there and not just have a one-off push, which is, again, there's nothing wrong with it. It's awesome. But I'm trying to be more disciplined, because before I wasn't setting rocks. And now that we are several years into EOS, I'm trying to follow that program and make that a sustainable push rather than just a one-off energy.
Yeah, we've started using Rocks for the last couple of quarters, and it's really been helpful. It's interesting to me that as we do this, you would think there would come a point where you're like, oh, I think we're in a good spot, but I can always find things that we can do better. And one of the things that we have found was 6 weeks ago, I lost my executive assistant, who was my part-time executive assistant, but really my review wrangler. Her job was to wrangle the reviews. And so each individual pod said, we can handle this. We'll be doing reviews for our pod and we'll get you. And it's been just abysmal. I think
Well,
we've got
it's not abysmal. Look, I preach this as loud as I can, which is, again, if you want to be serious about reviews, it takes a person who's dedicated to it. It's not if it's not the number one thing on their plate, it won't happen. It can be managed by somebody. It has to be you as the owner. You need to have that at the top of your pyramid. You need to have a person who's tasked with managing it, and you have somebody actually doing it. And if you don't, I still clear as day. I remember we had an intake director in charge of it, and numbers weren't great. I'm like, what's going on? Oh, the good news is our call volume was up. Great. We were in growth mode. It was awesome. We didn't staff up fast enough. There was no bandwidth. So the answer is, if you want it, like I am now preaching. Anybody will listen. Each review is worth $1,000 to your bottom line. Bottom line.
wow.
If you open a new office with 100 reviews, is that worth at least $100,000 a year to you?
Oh God, yeah.
Exactly. I mean, I'm being conservative. It may be more than that over time, right?
Oh,
So,
okay, great.
if you were hypothetically could snap your finger and have 1,000 reviews, and you could open 10 offices across the state with 100 reviews each, right? That would double your business probably.
Probably.
And
I mean, reviews have that much value. So okay, so let's talk about this then. You see this happening. Law firm splits up. What do you do with those reviews? Because one of them is going to try to keep the reviews, right?
We got better things to talk about. Let's try. I'm being flippant, but I'm also like, yeah, there's no good answer.
It really isn't, because ethically, and if I go off and start my own another firm, those reviews aren't for my firm, and it's
yes and no. I mean, like they're about you as the lawyer, and
But what if they're about people that I'm no longer partners with?
Like the ethics rules have not caught up with this.
The ethics rules are so far behind. It's
yeah, exactly. So, but I was going to say, of all the things we can solve, I get a lot of positive feedback. We had some really nice words from Tom Tona and others about our work on the podcast. I hope that we can. Again, there are one-off issues which have no good answers, but like what you were dealing with your hack today. Like those are the things that, to me, like the question of should you have a summer push or should you stay with Rocks? Real debate, right?
Right.
So I'm gonna try to keep us focused. What's our last topic for today? I'm gonna do the we'll pass on what to do with reviews, because like I also see people. It's amazing as you start to look out there. Breakups are bad no matter what. There's no good answer. Let me ask you a question. You were building a family law practice at one point.
Oh God, yeah, a decade ago.
Okay. Did you sunset it? Is it still out there? How did you end up doing
it? No. We got rid of it. It was an associate that was with us that was good, that said that he wanted to do something else and wanted to get into doing family law. So we built a website, built the content, built the ebooks, built the drip campaigns, built everything. After about 9 months, he said, I don't want to do this work anymore. He left. I wrapped up the few remaining files that needed to be wrapped up, and I got rid of it.
That statement right there, though, is prophetic. And I think that people should take note. That is what the business owner is responsible for. You can try anything you want. Jay's amazing at throwing things at the wall, spaghetti at the wall. The thing you got to figure out is when that spaghetti starts to fall and there's nobody else to pick it up.
It's me.
Right. And that is of all the nonsense we've dealt with, whether it's the hack, whether it's this, whether it's that, I think that that's one of those things that, like, as people think about building and scaling, you have two choices. Most people are not going to overstaff because there's benefits to it, but you're not going to want to see the margin disappear from your own income, which means you are now that, chief bottle washer.
And that's one of the reasons why I've structured my firm the way it is now. Like I've had to close out a couple of family cases over the years when we went away from it. I had to close out a couple of PI cases. Now I know I could have referred those out, but at that point, the value I would have gotten wouldn't have matched what I thought we had done in work-wise. So I said, I can push these over the edge. I'll try a couple of them. And I got good verdicts, and I settled the rest. That's why I'm not even considering taking those cases in anymore, because I know at the end of the day, if somebody chooses to leave, it's stuck on my plate, and I don't want to do that. So I'm really narrowly focused. I've gotten 2 offers in the last 2 months to add practice areas by good lawyers who are like, I need people who can help me out, overflow. You could build, you're so good with marketing, you could develop more. And part of me saying, yeah, but at the end of the day, you give me a murder or a DUI or a drug deal, I could take that file and without.
You want to stay in your lane.
I'm in my lane, and I like my lane.
Yeah.
I like my people, And so that's the other thing. You can have these wide eyes and be like, hey, I want to do med mal and civil rights cases and, all this stuff. But it's a lot of work. And
I'd say the thing that I've seen, I can speak for myself. I'm sure you've had this. You have one good hit with something. You're like, now I'm going to do that. Right. We have some civil rights case. Again, you've actually gone deep on it, but like we'll get some sort of niche case. We're like, hey, we're going to build this all out. And
I built out, I'll tell you right now, I built out elevatorinjurylawyer.com. It because my buddies hit it for 14 million in New York City. And I said, shit, I can build out this website and I can get it generates 2 viable leads a year that I refer out over the course. And it generates some money, not a lot, not a ton. I mean, maybe one day it will. But we spent a lot of effort to build that website out. And, I'm not taking those cases now. I don't want to have to put the effort and time into them. But I mean, I have the system set up so that I can take them in, process them, and refer them out. But I wouldn't try to become an elevator injury lawyer as my main focus now.
Awesome.
That's just, and I wouldn't even roll it into my own brand because it's so divergent from what we do.
Let's wrap this up. I hope I get to see you in New York. Anybody listening, May 30th, Friday, dinner the night before, New York City. Mastermind experience. Looking forward to it. What do you got coming up next couple of days?
I am in Dallas June 4th or 5th and 6th, speaking to the Dog Days of Summer seminar in Dallas. So that will be, I'm going to be doing a couple of presentations.
What's the Dog Days of Summer?
It's just it's a fundraiser for a animal shelter.
Nice.
That's put on by a friend, but she does a bunch of seminars every year on criminal law topics and wanted to add the business component to it. So I'm going to fly down there, hang out. I'm going to get to go to Perry's Pork Chop, and I'm going to take an Uber out to a Buc-ee's and check that out and try to film some social media stuff there. So I got that, and then I'll be in July. I'll be at the NACDL annual meeting in Minneapolis mid-July. So I'm going to do a little traveling. I rented a beach house for the month of July here.
Where are you going?
I'm going to be at Fairfield Beach, right on the beach. I figured it was better to just focus and stay home for a month and be on the beach every day than try to shoehorn in a week somewhere. So it'll just be my wife really wanted to be at the beach for a month. So
nice.
That's what we're doing. Yeah, but I'm looking forward to it.
Sounds good.
Awesome. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us. Thank you for being with us this week on the Law Firm Blueprint. Of course, you can take us anywhere you want to go by subscribing to the Law Firm Blueprint podcast. If you listen, be sure to give us a 5-star review. Our users are going up and up, which is a good thing. So tell your friends about our podcast, too. And, of course, you can catch us live every week, live in our Facebook group, the Law Firm Blueprint, or live on LinkedIn. Follow Seth for immediate updates as soon as we go live. Thanks so much, folks. Bye for now.